Have you ever been told by your doctor that your condition is permanent, that there's no way back, and that from now on, your life will depend on pills, checkups, and side effects? That's exactly what I was told the day I was diagnosed with high blood pressure. But let me tell you something shocking. They were wrong. Today, I'm going to share how I reversed my high blood pressure naturally, without relying on medication, and why most doctors don't talk about this. By the end of this video, you'll understand the real root causes of hypertension and the exact steps I took to bring my blood pressure back under control. So, if you want to learn how to take back control of your health, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and stick around until the very end. What I'm about to share may completely change the way you think about your body and your health. It all began with what I thought would be a routine checkup. I wasn't feeling that bad, just a little tired. A bit of stress from work, maybe some sleepless nights. But then, as the nurse wrapped the blood pressure cuff around my arm, I noticed her face tighten. She checked again, then a third time. My numbers were high, dangerously high. A few minutes later, the doctor came in with the results. He looked me straight in the eyes and said, "You have hypertension, and it's not going away. This is a permanent condition. You'll need to be on medication for the rest of your life." Those words hit me like a punch in the stomach. Permanent, forever, pills every day for the rest of my existence. In that moment, it felt as if my future had been stolen from me. I remember staring down at the prescription paper in my hands. The room around me felt smaller, like the walls were closing in. Questions started rushing through my mind. Was my body really broken beyond repair? Would I ever be able to live normally again without depending on medication? Was this really the best I could hope for? The doctor tried to reassure me. Millions of people live with hypertension. You'll just need to be careful, take your meds, and you'll be fine. But deep inside, something didn't sit right with me. It didn't sound like a cure. It sounded like a life sentence. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the doctor's words over and over in my head. My thoughts spiraled between fear and frustration. Was I just supposed to accept this fate? Was I nothing more than a patient number in the system, destined to swallow pills and manage symptoms instead of healing? I refused to believe it. There had to be another way. So I turned my fear into fuel. I began researching obsessively. I read medical articles, dug into studies most people never see, and watched countless testimonials of people who had managed to lower their blood pressure naturally. The more I read, the more questions I had, and one question kept echoing louder than all the others. If my body developed this problem, why couldn't it also repair itself? And that's when I stumbled across a discovery that changed everything for me. A truth about high blood pressure that almost no one talks about. Something far deeper than just salt, stress, or genetics. That was the first spark of hope. And it set me on a journey that would completely transform my health and my life. As I dove deeper into research, I realized something shocking. Most people, and even most doctors, don't really know the true cause of high blood pressure. Think about it. If the root cause is so unknown, how is it that millions of people are prescribed medication every single year? The truth is, the system doesn't really focus on curing hypertension. It focuses on managing it, forever. But here's what I discovered. High blood pressure is not just about salt or stress. It's about damage happening inside your blood vessels at a microscopic level. Inside your arteries, there's a special protective layer, almost like a non-stick coating on a frying pan. It's called the endothelial glycocalyx, and a thin, sugar-like layer that keeps your blood vessels flexible, smooth, and resistant to damage. Now here's the scary part. When this layer gets damaged, usually by too much sugar, processed carbs, or inflammation, your arteries lose their ability to relax properly. The result? Blood pressure shoots up, and it doesn't stop there. When the protective layer is gone, calcium starts building up where it shouldn't, blood vessels stiffen, and inflammation spreads like wildfire. This is why so many people are given calcium channel blockers. But notice, those drugs never fix the root problem. They only cover the symptom. The real villain behind this damage? Insulin resistance. When your body becomes resistant to insulin, not only does your blood sugar rise, but your arteries also stop responding the way they should. The receptors that normally tell your blood vessels to relax get jammed. It's like pressing the brake pedal in your car, but the brake lines are cut. No matter how hard you push, the car won't stop, and that's why so many people struggle with hypertension even when they eat less salt. Because the true problem isn't the salt shaker on your table. It's the insulin resistance and the damage it causes inside your arteries. When I first read about this, it was like a light bulb went off in my head. For years, I had been told that hypertension just happens, that it's genetic, or that it's because of stress. But here was proof that there was a deeper, fixable cause. And once I understood this, I realized that if I could reverse insulin resistance and heal that protective layer inside my arteries, I could actually bring my blood pressure down naturally. This was the missing piece of the puzzle, and it changed the way I saw everything about my health. Once I understood the hidden cause of high blood pressure, I knew I couldn't just sit back and rely on prescriptions. I had to take action, real, practical changes that addressed the problem from the inside out. The first thing I realized was this: my lifestyle had to change. Hypertension didn't appear overnight, and it wasn't going to disappear overnight either. But if I could create the right conditions, my body had the power to heal. So where did I start? With food. I looked closely at what I was eating every day. Processed carbs, sugar, hidden starches, they were everywhere. Even foods I once thought were healthy were silently raising my insulin levels and damaging my blood vessels. That's when I made a commitment. I cut out refined sugars. I reduced bread, pasta, and other processed carbs. I started eating more whole, natural foods. But it wasn't just about removing the bad, it was also about adding the good. I learned that certain nutrients could actually help repair that protective layer in my arteries and support healthy blood pressure. Magnesium, potassium, vitamin D, and sulfur-rich foods became a cornerstone of my new diet. Instead of fearing foods like eggs and grass-fed red meat, I embraced them, knowing they provided what my body desperately needed to heal. And then came the second change: intermittent fasting. At first, the idea of skipping meals felt strange. I had always believed that eating every few hours was healthy. But when I gave my body time to rest and burn stored energy, I noticed something incredible. My blood sugar stabilized. My cravings disappeared, and over time, my blood pressure began to respond. It wasn't always easy. There were days when I felt tempted to go back to old habits. But every time I checked my blood pressure monitor at home and saw those numbers improving, it gave me the motivation to keep going. Slowly but surely, I could feel the difference. My energy returned, my mind felt clearer, and most importantly, I no longer felt like a victim of my diagnosis. I was taking control, and for the first time since hearing the words lifelong condition, I felt hope. This was the beginning of my healing journey. A path built not on quick fixes or pills, but on restoring balance to my body. And in the next chapter, I'll share exactly how these lifestyle changes started transforming not just my blood pressure, but my entire life. When I first started this journey, one of the hardest things wasn't changing my diet or trying new habits. It was breaking free from the myths I had believed for years. You see, most of us grow up hearing the same repeated advice about blood pressure. Avoid salt. Eat less fat. Take your pills. That's all you can do. But the deeper I researched, the more I realized much of this advice is incomplete and in some cases completely misleading. Myth number 1. High blood pressure is caused mainly by salt. For years, I obsessed over every pinch of salt I added to my food. I bought low-sodium snacks, avoided seasoning, and even felt guilty if I sprinkled a little salt on my eggs. But here's what I learned. The real issue isn't always sodium. In fact, low potassium levels can be just as dangerous, and balancing potassium with sodium is what truly matters. Fresh vegetables, avocados, and even mineral-rich salts were not my enemies. They were part of the solution. Myth number 2. Fatty foods are harmful for hypertension. I used to avoid eggs, butter, and red meat because I thought they would clog my arteries. But the truth is, natural fats, especially from grass-fed sources, provide vital nutrients like sulfur and fat-soluble vitamins that actually help repair the lining of blood vessels. What damages the arteries isn't healthy fat. It's sugar and processed seed oils. Myth number 3, hypertension is purely genetic. I can't tell you how many times I heard, if it runs in your family, you can't escape it. That myth almost destroyed my hope. But science shows that genetics only set the stage. Lifestyle, diet, stress, and inflammation decide whether those genes switch on or not. And I realized that my daily choices had far more power than my DNA. Myth number 4, medication is the only way to control blood pressure. I'm not against medicine. It can save lives in emergencies. But long-term, I realized medication wasn't fixing my problem. It was like putting duct tape over a leaking pipe. The water still flows, the damage still happens. True healing meant addressing the root causes, not just covering the symptoms. Breaking free from these myths wasn't easy. They had been drilled into my head for years by commercials, well-meaning friends, and even doctors. But once I began questioning them and looking at real evidence, I felt empowered. I was no longer living in fear of every meal or every family history story. Instead, I was learning to listen to my body. Feed it what it truly needed and give it the chance to heal, and in the process, I discovered something incredible. The path to reversing high blood pressure naturally isn't about restriction and fear. It's about understanding and freedom. In the next chapter, I'll show you exactly how I put this into practice every single day, with a routine that not only lowered my blood pressure but gave me back my energy, focus, and confidence. My daily routine for a healthy blood pressure knowledge is powerful, but knowledge without action doesn't change anything. Once I understood the truth about high blood pressure, I knew I needed a daily system that would not just lower my numbers, but help me rebuild my health from the ground up. So here's what a typical day looked like once I committed to this journey. Morning, setting the tone for the day. I started each morning with a glass of water and a few deep breaths. Hydration sounds simple, but it makes a huge difference. Dehydration thickens your blood and makes your heart work harder, so water became my first medicine. Then, instead of rushing for breakfast like I used to, I practiced intermittent fasting. Most days, I skipped breakfast and waited until lunchtime to eat. This gave my body hours of rest from constant digestion, allowing insulin levels to drop and my blood vessels to relax. Sometimes I would take a short morning walk. Not an intense workout, just 15-20 minutes of moving my body. This simple habit lowered my stress hormones and helped me start the day calm and focused. Afternoon, eating to heal, not just to fill. When it came time to break my fast, I didn't just eat whatever was convenient. I built meals with purpose. My plate usually looked like this: a source of clean protein, like eggs, chicken, or grass-fed beef, a generous portion of vegetables, especially leafy greens for potassium, healthy fats like avocado, olive oil, or nuts. I also made sure I was getting magnesium and vitamin D, two nutrients most people are deficient in, yet they are critical for blood pressure balance. Sometimes I used supplements, but I focused mostly on food first. And one thing I noticed: when I ate real food that nourished my body, my cravings disappeared. I no longer felt trapped in the cycle of snacking and energy crashes. Evening, calming the body, calming the mind. The evening routine was just as important as what I did during the day. I learned that stress and poor sleep could spike my blood pressure just as much as bad food. So I built habits that signaled my body it was time to rest. I turned off screens an hour before bed, dimmed the lights, and sometimes drank a calming herbal tea. If I felt particularly tense, I took extra magnesium or practiced breathing exercises. Slowly, I noticed my sleep getting deeper and more restorative, and every morning when I checked my blood pressure, I could see the results. The numbers were no longer scary. They were improving. Week after week, this daily routine wasn't complicated. It wasn't about perfection. It was about consistency. Each glass of water, each healthy meal, each night of good sleep was a small investment. And together, they built the foundation that allowed my blood pressure to come back down naturally. And here's the best part: I didn't just heal my blood pressure. I healed my relationship with food, my energy, and even my mindset. I stopped living in fear of my condition and started living with confidence in my choices. In the next chapter, I'll share the results of this journey, The moment I realized I had done what doctors said was impossible. The results, doing the impossible weeks, turned into months, and my routine became second nature. I wasn't just following a diet anymore. I was living a new lifestyle. But the real question remained. Was it working? Every morning, I checked my blood pressure with my home monitor. At first, the changes were small. A few points lower here, a slight improvement there. But slowly, the numbers began to tell a different story. The top number dropped. The bottom number stabilized. My pulse felt steady. The fear that once gripped me every time I saw the cuff inflate was gone. Instead, I felt anticipation, excitement even. I was no longer dreading the results. I was celebrating them. And then came the day I'll never forget. I went back to the doctor's office for a follow-up. I sat down. The cuff went around my arm, and I watched the numbers appear on the screen. The nurse looked at me, then at the doctor. "Your blood pressure is normal." Those words were like music to my ears. Normal. Something I was told I would never hear again. The doctor looked puzzled. He asked if I was taking the medication exactly as prescribed. I smiled and said, "Actually, I've been making changes, natural changes." He didn't have much to say after that, but I didn't need his approval. I already knew the truth. I had done what they said was impossible, and the best part? This wasn't just about numbers on a screen. My whole life had changed. I had more energy than I'd felt in years. My mind was clear and focused. I was sleeping deeply and waking up refreshed. And most importantly, I no longer lived with fear. I lived with freedom. High blood pressure was no longer controlling my life. I was in control, and that's why I'm sharing my story with you today. Because if I could do it, someone who was told it was hopeless, then maybe, just maybe, you can too. If this video inspired you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs hope. Because the truth is, sometimes the impossible is possible.
Some of the leading
And there you have it.
for heart
My
failure
journey from being told
are
my high blood pressure was permanent
and
to proving that
abnormal heart
natural
rhythms.
healing is possible.
Some of the leading
Now I want to hear
causes
from
for
you.
heart failure
Have you or someone you
high
love
blood
ever struggled
pressure
with high blood pressure?
and abnormal
Share your
heart
story in the
rhythms.
comments below.
Some of the
Your
leading
experience might
causes for
inspire
heart
someone else
failure
today.
are high
If
blood
this video
pressure
gave you hope,
and abnormal
then do me a
heart
favor.
rhythms.
Hit the like button
Some
to
of
let
the
YouTube
leading
know this is
causes
worth
for heart
sharing.
failure
Subscribe to the
are
channel
high
if you
blood
haven't
pressure
already. I'll be
and
bringing more
abnormal
real,
heart rhythms.
practical health content
Some
your
of the
doctor
leading
probably never
causes for
told
heart
you.
failure
And don't forget to share
are
this
high
video with a
blood
friend or
pressure
family member who
and
needs it.
abnormal heart
Remember,
rhythms.
your health is in your
Some of the
hands.
leading causes for
What
heart
seems
failure
impossible today could be
are
your
high
breakthrough
blood
tomorrow.
pressure
Thank you for
and
watching,
abnormal
and I'll
heart
see you in the
rhythms.
next video.